Howdy, mates. How are we? It's a great afternoon so far, at least down in Sarasota, Florida. Some people could say otherwise, especially for those up north. I give you credit because I know how that feels. And we actually recently had our cold front, and that was, I think I've become a little Floridified. That's always the common joke for those who have been in Florida for a little while. They're not as used to the cold. I mean, it's one of those things. I don't think you get used to it. It's just you adapt to it. There's a difference. But in my last video, I was really talking about, the different components that make up a littoral zone, as you can see along the borders here. But I didn't have a chance to really talk about some of the importance of littoral zones. So to start off, we have our wildlife, of course, whether it be birds, aquatic organisms, mammals, even amphibians, so, all these different groups. So, for instance, we have this mulligrass, right, that's in front of us. Well, they produce all types of seeds. And so with that being said, aside from the plant having wind dispersal, they're also a food source in which they'll eventually be defecated and will just spread to another area. And by the way, mulligrass is a great native plant too, to incorporate, whether it be at your home or even on company property as well. Hold on just a second. So that's one measure that they provide. They're a food source. For another, as I mentioned, that they are a buffer. So one thing that these plants do with their extensive roots that intertwine, connect with one another, they serve as an anchor for our soil. And that's especially crucial down here in Florida, given that much of the soil is very sandy. So it's very porous and not as compact. It doesn't cover as much surface area. So once the soil is then stabilized, that actually can reduce the amount of runoff that happens, whether it be stormwater or even wastewater too. Fortunately, this is a protected park, so it is illegal to dump various forms of waste. But this is an essential park, especially in this surrounding community of urbanized areas. That sounded very complex, more than what I needed it to be. But anyways, they can slow down how much erosion happens. And for another, littoral zones are actually a great way to mitigate nutrient pollution coming from nitrates and phosphates that we commonly use in our fertilizers. The thing is, it kind of talks about what I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. It's very good for those of you who are looking to plant something, whether it be native or maybe non-native. It's good to know how much fertilizer you need to use, depending on your cation exchange capacity of your soil and knowing what type you have. And so this brings up another type of deal that I should mention. In case if you haven't already, especially for those of you in Florida, you all should check out the Florida Friendly Landscaping organization. That is basically in part of the University of Florida Extension Office. So they typically follow 9 different principles, which mostly focus on reducing waste, reducing reducing waste, as well as reducing how much fertilizer you use, and then with Florida-friendly landscaping, it goes into what types of native plants should you incorporate. I think one of them is actually right plant, right place. And usually you can work in consultation with this with specialized extension agents, which a couple of them I actually know from Charlotte County. They are really good people, and most of them are certified in working with fertilizers or as master gardeners, which is actually another program I hope to get myself into quite soon. Just because, frankly, I want to become more involved with gardening in general, because I honestly miss it quite a bit. I miss partaking in that activity more often. But yeah, this just really talks about some of the different stages that you can see here at this wetland pond. You know, you see oak hammock, marsh, open water, and just some of the different types of plants that you will see here. See, everything works in unison at a wetland pond as soon as you have native plants. So, for one last thing I wanted to mention, when I was talking about Florida-friendly landscaping, I'm sure each state in the United States has their own version of what I just spoke of. So it doesn't have to just apply to Florida. It can apply to basically every state. And in turn, if we follow some of these steps, we can actually reduce the amount of invasive plants, and we can also mitigate the impact of nutrient pollution. So even if you're just doing it at home, you're already doing the right thing. And this can also apply to different companies too that have properties like this, and even landscaping companies too. So I believe, frankly, if I was to ever work for a landscaping company, I'd want it to somehow be through the University of Florida, the extension office, just because they know how to be ethical, and they also provide an opportunity to educate as well. So alrighty, if you guys enjoyed this video, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something of value, especially when it comes to restoration. It's always the baby steps, right? It's always one step at a time. It's alright. Take it easy, you guys. Take care.